on a couple, yeah.
Cool. Who have you been on?
Yeah. There was two massage therapists and a microphone.
Okay.
What was the last one I did?
What's that?
It's a gentleman out of Toronto.
I'm assuming they're massage therapists.
He's a massage therapist out in Toronto. Does a lot more continuing education stuff now than
that's sweet.
than
actually practicing.
Practice. And so it's basically he does a couple of different podcast types where he does almost like a one that he calls Under the Sheets, right? Which is kind of like I wouldn't say the dark side of massage therapy. Like there's a dark side, but like the I suppose the real side, right?
Oh, that's cool.
Getting therapist perspective on certain issues that come up in
like ethical issues and that kind of thing. Okay.
All that kind of stuff and
that's important.
Issues with customers.
Stuff that they don't teach. They don't really teach you in school.
Right? They don't tell you that part.
They're not going to tell you that part. That's kind of a learn as you go, right?
Well, that's good.
Yeah, which is really. But then they do like the educational stuff and stuff like that. And mine was, I guess, maybe a combination of both, but it was more of a personal, a dive into sort of my personal end of things. So, cool. But and then there was a future cast, I think is what he calls it. This podcast by a friend of mine. It was the first one I did. Futures Past. Sorry. Cool. Futures Path. Yes. Futures Path. Podcast.
Okay.
Yeah. Bit of it. Yeah. But it was good. And it's about sort of more businessy type, goal oriented.
Yeah.
Cool.
That sort of thing.
Cool.
So that was kind of neat.
Sweet. Nice. So now the Flowcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the Flowcast.
Right on.
So we've got Josh Martin on today, and I think it's perfect timing because you've got a book coming out, What Is Next? And so I'm hoping that we can kind of align this perfectly with the book launch and get more people on board with checking it out, because I actually had the honor of being one of the early editors for the book, and it's a real deep dive into your life and everything. You've got an excellent story to tell. So let's hopefully get into a bit of that today and see where everything leads. So
that sounds good.
So welcome to the show. And
thank you.
And so who are you, kind of in a nutshell?
Oh man, that's a deep question.
Could be.
Who am I? Yes. Yeah. It could be very simple. I haven't had coffee this morning yet, which
that's a big deal for you.
For people who don't know me,
we can get started.
That's a big deal. So it could go off the rails really quick.
You should have brought one.
No, I know. It's kind of early for me.
Oh, okay.
No, it's all good. All good. No, I'm Josh Martin, registered massage therapist in Peterborough, born and raised here. Been in practice for almost 16 years now, in the healthcare industry, but do a lot of work with athletes and things like that as well. So I work with the Peterborough Lakers. I'm their head trainer. So been with them for 10 seasons now. So,
oh, wow.
So that's a fun part of my job. I really do enjoy working with the athletes and stuff like that. So my practice has kind of moved towards sort of dealing with sports injury and stuff like that now. And recently wrote a book. So that was exciting, but challenging as well. But like you said, it was a bit of a deep dive into some personal stuff and kind of overcoming that and so that's me in a nutshell.
Cool.
Yeah. So as far as the book goes, What Is Next is a little bit of and I'm looking forward to reading the final product too. I've already pre-ordered it and I'm looking forward to launch day is March 16th, correct?
Yes,
okay. So that's like
coming
next week.
Yeah.
The
Monday after next week.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of excitement in there with the experience that you've had with the Peterborough Lakers and also the excitement or drama, I should say, around your life. So what was like the driving force behind wanting to share this story?
these book has come out of sort of the what is next idea of the book came out of the 2017 Lakers season. I was going through a really rough time with my relationship with my wife. We had separated at the time. We have 5 kids, so that's right there is a big one. And so we were going through a pretty rough time, and sort of that Lakers season, it was in the summer, that sort of thing was kind of felt for me anyway like the one good thing I had going in my life right now. Mm-hmm. I had my clinical practice, whatever. Mm-hmm. It was moving along, but that's sort of a day-to-day thing anyway, that I just kind of put that hat on and went to work, and that was it. And but I always look forward to Thursday night. Thursday night, the Memorial Center was, that's like, like in the winter. Mm-hmm. Winters are so long for me, because all I'm wanting to do is work with the guys, just get back to lacrosse. And so it was a very, very long, trying summer, just with everything that was going on personally. And then as we started to get into the playoffs with the team started losing. We came out of a winning regular season. We were up like 17-1 in the regular season. So everybody's thinking,
that seems easy.
We're just gonna blow over everybody. And we found ourselves losing 2-1 to the worst place team in the league.
Oh, that hurts.
And yeah. And so as you can imagine in sports, if you've ever been in sort of the locker room of a team like that, that's going like from top tier to almost like, there's almost fistfights breaking out in the locker room because guys are arguing with each other, arguing with the coaches. And, if you have ever dealt with lacrosse players, they're a very passionate breed of gentlemen.
I don't know the type. Are they similar to hockey players, or is that a different?
No, they're a little bit different than hockey players. I don't want to offend anybody, so I'm not going to give my take on that. But no, lacrosse guys are a special breed. They play the game for the love of the game. Right. So they're very passionate about it. They don't make a lot of money playing lacrosse. Half these guys are, have their full-time jobs during the week, and then they go and they, get beat up with lacrosse sticks on the weekend, and then back to work on Monday, that sort of thing. And so their passion for the sport, they're driven, and some of the most goal-oriented guys that you'll ever meet. And so when, they find themselves down, it becomes, a lot of the guys are pointing fingers, doing all this kind of stuff. And so the play became very selfish play, on the floor. You saw guys just that weren't passing the ball. They weren't, listening to the coaches. They were yelling at the coaches, that sort of thing. Oh, I know better than you, And so the coaches and the captains just, took a day or two and they just secluded themselves, and they said, okay, we've got to come up with something that's going to work for this team. It's only going to work if the whole team buys into it, but it's something that we have to do. And so that's when they took the captains as well. And they came up with the acronym WIN, what is next? There was a second part of it, which is whatever's necessary, right? So doing whatever's necessary to win, that sort of thing. But the whole what is next thing became this, it became this whole social media hashtag thing that was going around, right? Whenever somebody would post about the Lakers, it would be hashtag what is next or hashtag win, And so me being on the bench, I'm not a part of the play. I'm not calling plays. I'm not doing that. I'm just watching. Mm-hmm. That's my my job is to just stand on my little perch, not get in the coach's way, not get in the player's way, and just if somebody goes down, that's my job to go out and so I'm constantly observing. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was like this movie moment that happened. Or you got to get like this, the pins and needles, right? And the goosebumps and all that kind of stuff. Because as I started to implement this sort of what is next mentality and this strategy with the players, which was, we know we want to win the championship. Our goal is to win the Man Cup. That's just, what it is. But we're not going to win the Man Cup if we lose the first round. Mm-hmm. We're down 2-0 already. So we've got to win this series first. But in order to win this series, we've got to win a game, you know. But to win the game, you have to win each period, you know, and to win each period, you got to win each shift. And so it became this, okay, the guys go on the floor for 30 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever their shift length is, come off, and the first thing that's said to them, okay, what is next? What'd you do during that shift that you can take into the next? What did you do wrong? What did you do right? Did you trust the guy next to you to make sure that he was covering his? Did you leave him alone to make sure that he was doing his assignment? Did you listen to the coaches when the coach said take a step up, you know, or do whatever it was? And this shift began to happen in game 3. That was like I said, it was for me. I don't know if anybody else noticed it, but for me, it was like this all of a sudden, you know, this mentality shift. And we won the next 4 games straight.
Sweet.
You know, the next series we won 5 games against Six Nations, which is usually, you know, that series usually goes 7 games. And then we won the Mann Cup in 4 games. Thankfully, because the book wouldn't probably hold much weight if we didn't win, right? So, and then it happened again the next year. So 2018, same sort of thing. And the guys were coming off the floor going, you know, yelling at each other, what's next? What's next? Let's figure out what we did. That worked. What didn't work. And let's work on it. And so for me, like I said, it was huge, you know, to be able to see that change in the guys and the change in, because when you start to see those little wins happen, there's no more fights in the locker room. You know, the coaches are happy with the players. Nobody's, you know, players are happy with the coaches. You know, obviously there's a lot more, you know, everybody's getting along and everything's running like a smooth machine, you know. It's not to say that they're not going to lose a game, you know, but when they do, they're able to say, okay, what's next?
Constructive, yeah.
Right? Let's figure this out. So I thought to myself, because I'm the son of a preacher man. My dad's a pastor. And so he's taught me, or I've learned organically how to take, you know, any sort of situation and have some sort of analogy come out of it. I don't know. It's a thing. It's really weird. And so for me, it was like, okay, can I take something like this and apply it to my actual life?
Right.
You know, and like I said, it was a dark time for me. Even though, you know, the Lakers were doing great and that part of it was awesome. You know, I was still in a pretty dark spot myself. You know, going through, you know, some addiction stuff, lots of mental health issues, you know, depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. You know, there was a point where I was standing on top of a bridge thinking, you know, is this when I'm, you know, my family doesn't really want me right now. You know, the world doesn't seem to really want me right now. But obviously, you know, having my kids in my mind, and not wanting them to grow up without a dad, you know, that sort of thing, that definitely was key for that. But so I was going through a lot of stuff, some really heavy stuff, and it's all in the book and all that kind of stuff. But we don't have to drag the morning down too much, all that kind of stuff. But the application of kind of that what is next strategy and what is next mentality, it took me a little while. You know, obviously because I was 2017 and it's 2020 now, and the book's finally coming out. And I'm not out of the woods yet. I mean, I still deal with a lot of stuff, but you know, my marriage is slowly starting to get better, you know, that sort of thing. We're trying to work things out. You know, as far as, you know, my addictions and mental health stuff is concerned, you know, again, working step by step on that, kind of looking at all the strategies and the ways that I can, you know, through the book and all that kind of stuff to really implement that in my own life. But also in business and stuff like that too, right? That was sort of one of the book is kind of broken out that, you know, it's almost as if you can take this either as personal goals, you can take it as business goals. How do we achieve them using this? What is next strategy and that sort of thing? So, to say it's worked 100% for me, I can't really claim that for sure. I mean,
it's still a process.
It's still a process, right? But the Lakers have won 3 Mann Cups in a row, so
there's something to it.
Yeah, there's got to be something to it. So
I think it just puts you in that like positive mindset, right? You're like, okay, how do I overcome this? Like that's just what is next means. Is okay, what's the next step? And if you have that mindset, you're gonna figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
That's sweet.
Exactly.
Thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah, cool.
It's a very, and in a lot of senses and in a lot of traditions, it's a very mindful approach to everything, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's through Christianity or Buddhism, even Stoic philosophy, that next step, taking that next step and not focusing too far on the future, even though having it in mind. Have you incorporated any sort of mindfulness practices in your life? Or?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I grew up in the church. Like I said, my dad was a pastor. My mom was a church secretary for years. So I probably had a playpen in the corner of my mom's office at some point, growing up. So I've grown up in the church, so I'm a Christian, and faith plays a big role for me. One of the habits that I've tried to develop into my life is there's a little app that I have. It's called Church Home, but it has a daily, what do they call it? It's a daily,
like reading.
Yeah, daily, almost like a meditative prayer.
Yeah.
That they do that based on kind of how you're feeling, right? So you compare, are you dealing with anxiety? Are you dealing with this? Cool. Are you dealing with that?
Is it audio or?
It is. It's audio format. So, and they're 5 or 6 minutes long. They're not very long at all. But it's just that being able to shut down for a bit and listen and just kind of go into that zone, right?
Yep.
Which I find really, really quite helpful and been nice to kind of incorporate, But it's the same, with any sort of like you said, mindfulness practice, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a faith-based thing, but anything to kind of incorporate just to slow the mind down a little bit.
Totally.
I think is definitely important. It's one of those things that it's kind of one of the steps in the book that I put in there too, is the whole rest and recharge. I think is so important. I was just thinking about that this morning actually, because my cell phone's been really driving me absolutely nuts lately. It's one of those things where it's like I realize how long it's been on for.
Yeah.
And I go, because it's my alarm in the morning, it's what I use for absolutely
They're like part
everything.
Of our body
they are, point, right?
Yeah.
And then you go, well, if I just shut it off and restart it, it'll work fine again. Or maybe that's just my phone because it's an old, because I never buy new phones, but I don't know or maybe that just goes for the older you get, right? The more you need to like shut down and restart again.
I think
but no, it's definitely a part of what I find to be helpful on a day-to-day basis is just taking that little bit of time to just recharge and rest the batteries a little bit.
How else do you rest and recharge? Like if you were to take a day, what do you do?
Oh my gosh. For me, music is huge for me.
Sweet.
So I'm a big fan of literally just plugging my ears with music and just going and sitting somewhere.
Just zoning out.
Just zoning out.
Cool.
That's one thing. I mean, it doesn't happen very often. Life with 5 kids doesn't give a lot of time for that. So that doesn't happen very often, but on the slim chance that I'm able to just sit for a minute, it usually involves a coffee and music are 2 of the big things for me. And it's not usually, I had this conversation, I'm going to name drop here because I don't get to very often. I had coffee with Jag Tanna from I Mother Earth. He's a client of mine, but it was awesome because we went to a coffee shop, local. My buddy Dan Dan has a roastery in town.
Oh yeah.
Rapid Zen Coffee is a little shout out to him too, because I think it's the best coffee in town.
Sweet.
But he, we sat and talked about coffee and how it's not so much. Sorry, the older we get, I think we become, not that we become immune to caffeine. We're probably overly addicted to caffeine. Maybe that's the problem. Permanently addicted, but I just enjoy a cup of coffee. Just,
I hear you. I like the ritual of it.
Just it's not so much because I need it. I need my fix. It's just nice to have. It's just something about sitting with a nice cup of coffee, right? That I don't know.
I think we equate it with that rest, right?
I think so.
You have that 5 minutes to just kind of sit there.
Yeah.
Sip on it, and then you gotta get up because you gotta get up.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Plus all the antioxidants in it can actually, kind of kickstart your brain into a creative spot and
health juice.
And for a lot of people, it is the ritual for sure. But
anyway, I can excuse it as being healthy. I'll do it.
Right? So, I know.
I keep saying if I ever run into a doctor or something like that tells me I need to cut out coffee out of my diet,
you need to go see another doctor.
Sorry, I gotta find another doctor.
Ben Greenfield says it's good for you, and I decided that he's my new god. So.
Perfect. I like it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, and when you are over caffeinated, you can still go with decaf. If maybe not the same.
Yeah.
I know most people that are coffee lovers don't agree with that.
It's just the taste. There's something
there is. I think so. I had somebody else ask me that too the other day.
Yeah.
Why can't you just switch to decaf then if it's not about the caffeine?
Just the flavor. Decaf is like sour.
Oh, okay.
Like it's hard to make it taste good.
Yeah.
I don't drink decaf, so I don't know. I just throwing that out there as a suggestion, but maybe it's nasty.
It's like how people. I wish I could be on this board. Like, what do they drink that like dandelion coffee instead of you dabbled in
right,
that?
like chicory root and stuff.
They're like, it tastes just like coffee. No, it doesn't. It tastes like sticks that have been steeped in water. If you think it tastes just like coffee, I'm sorry for your coffee.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Like, you're doing coffee wrong.
You've had a sad existence.
Yeah, seriously.
I said I didn't want to offend people now. Probably.
You know what? Though we can put a little explicit sign. You can start throwing down whenever you want. So what made you feel like your story was something to share? Like I listened to it and I'm like, yeah, this needs to be heard by people. But what inside of you was like, let's write this out?
Well, for me, it became therapeutic to write it out. Because I started with a blog. So I started just kind of blogging whatever. More so, trying to be that sort of inspirational type,
Sure.
whatever. And it started to become more therapeutic to write a little bit more about what was going on with me personally, and how I was dealing with it. And because you get, you get a couple people that will, comment like, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That really, it's nice to know that there's somebody else out there that's going through it. And so for me, being in the healthcare industry, I'm quite passionate about helping people.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what I do. That's, what I've done for what seems like forever. So it was another way of me to be able to help people.
Yeah. That's
because if somebody doesn't want to read it, then they don't have to, but if it can help one or two people, I mean, that's fantastic, right? That's enough for me. And I think there's something to the more that I talk to people about it, it becomes easier. It becomes easier to share with people. Like, I was addicted to alcohol and gambling, and I was severely depressed and tons of anxiety and all that sort of thing. Because a lot of people especially people coming to the clinic, they have no idea. I'm very good at putting on a fake smile and the happy face, right? Because I've had to do it for years. I mean, that's just
practice.
That's what you do. And so it was kind of a chance for me to also kind of shed that part, because it weighs heavy on you. at the end of the day, when you've been, listening to everybody else's problems and having to try and fix everybody else's issues, you're in a room for an hour with somebody, right? There's things that are talked about that obviously can't share with anybody else. But so what do you do with it, right? You internalize it. And at the end of the day, it just feels like, I go in my car and sit in my car and just, it just feels so heavy. And so for me, especially at the time when my wife and I were separated, I didn't have my kids on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so I hated being alone. I hated being, going back to my apartment and seeing all my kids' stuff, right? And for me, that was a huge trigger for me. Yeah. And so I would go and I would sit at Starbucks until they kicked me out, Unfortunately, they just kept bringing me coffee after. But, I would just sit there and write and just get my thoughts out for the day. And so that was, so for me, I felt like it was more of a therapeutic thing. Cool. It was my form of self-care, I guess.
Yeah, that's great.
To be able to do that. So, and sort of that vulnerability piece is difficult. It's not easy for a lot of people, but I found anyway, for me, the more it got out, the easier it became.
Right. A
little lighter I felt, at the end of the day, sort of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so you also it also feels like a bit of a transition time for you. Are you were doing stuff at Fleming as an instructor, and are you still in that?
Not right now. Being part-time faculty there, it's kind of hit and miss as far as when they want to throw you a contract or not. But
gotcha.
Yeah. So there's definitely the part of
kind of passing on your knowledge and sharing what you've experienced, because it's been a long journey.
It has been a long journey. It's certainly not over yet. But
nope.
It's one of those things that, especially as a self-employed entrepreneur, I don't know if your journey's ever done until the shovel's on the ground, right? Yeah. So, talking about retirement, oh gosh, I don't know when that's ever going to happen, but if I don't think it ever will. No, but it's definitely, especially with this year, kind of leaving the past decade and coming into a new one, right? Was it kind of hit me pretty hard actually this year, looking at the next 10 years, right? Everybody's talking about, 10 years is over, what are you going to do in 10 years and 10 years? And I try not to think about that kind of stuff.
I just get so overwhelmed.
I know. Like New Year's resolutions and all that kind of stuff. I tried it because I never do them. But for some reason this year, it was just one of those things that I just couldn't shake, right? Like I wanted to, and so looking at, the next 10 years, I'm going, man, like in 10 years, my youngest is going to be 16. And I don't think I'm that old, I'm only, I'm going to be 38 this year. So I'm closer to 40 than I want to be, but that's okay. So I'm not going to be quite 50 yet, and I might not have any kids at home, that sort of thing. Which is an absolutely crazy thought. And so I tried not to go to 10 years, maybe just 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Just to not feel so overwhelmed myself.
Yeah,
But for some reason, this whole decade thing and looking at the fact that I've been in practice for 16 years coming up this year, my hands and arms aren't, they're not always feeling the best at the end of the day, going, man, am I going to be able to do this with my hands for another who knows how long?
It's kind of ironic, hey, that
your
hands take the brunt of everyone else's release.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it kind of became for me, a little bit of looking at transition too.
Yeah.
And taking, what I wrote and going, can I again apply this to transition in my life? Not just my life, but could I help others that are going through a transition, that sort of thing. Like my dad, he just retired. He was also a paramedic.
Oh yeah.
so paramedic for 40 some odd years.
Jeez.
And he retired, and he's going, what do I do?
I've heard that's so hard.
Oh yeah.
Like you almost have to grieve your.
Oh yeah, because his identity was in his uniform.
After 40 years, of course.
Like he put his uniform on, and that was what he did. And he still tears up when he sees a picture, that sort of thing. And so, it was for him, he was having a really, and you could tell, you could tell he was having a hard time not being with it. Every time a siren went, you'd see him kind of perk up, right? Like,
yeah, that would be
and so my love of coffee is also a product of my parents. They are definitely coffee lovers as well. And so my dad just one day was sitting in Starbucks, which is his usual watering hole, and thought, man, it would be nice to work here. And so he works up the street at Starbucks now.
Wow, sweet.
so he's living his dream. Like it's, and so it's, which is really cool.
That is cool.
So he's, that whole transition piece, right? Where you kind of go through that little bit of a funk, but what's next, right? Yeah. And so for him, it was, let's do something that he loves. He loves coffee, so why not be immersed in it? So, which is really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, it may be selfishly motivated that I love the fact that he brings home free coffee.
Hey, it's handy.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not.
Count your blessings.
Exactly. I'm not going to be upset about that by any means. So. No, but so that there's that transition piece that definitely kind of plays into a lot of the things that I, wrote about and kind of am looking into my own life and going, what's next for me? Like, is this book thing? Is this what I'm now meant to do? Sort of, am I going to pursue this with another one, or what's going to happen here? So, like you said, it's a process, right?
Yeah.
So it's trying to figure all that out, and hopefully it might be able to help some people.
For sure. It seems like you've got all the stereotypical pieces for the creative writer in place. So what does your writing process look like? Is it I think I kind of know because you post about it quite a bit. But just go ahead and share, because
yes, my Instagram feed is lots of pictures of a laptop and
a coffee shop.
A coffee shop. Yeah. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I never really thought about.
Is there a time of day or
specific process?
Is there a time that you feel more creative?
I'm not much of a morning person. I'm a night hawk. I think I've been trained that way. When you have kids, you tend not to.
Your spare time is like after 9.
Yeah, and that's when you do your laundry and you catch up on the dishes and all that kind of stuff and do everything. So I did the evenings is usually when I do sort of an after work sort of idea. I've learned not to be upset with myself that I'm not a morning person. I know there's all this science and all this kind of stuff around, when you wake up at.
There's also science around the other side.
Yeah, I know. There's that whole thing about waking up.
There's a lot of guilt, though, eh?
There is. It seems like it's one of those things that, if you're not a morning person, then you're not going to get your brain flowing and all this kind of stuff.
One of my little features here, just like, I almost didn't pursue my whole career because I was told I needed to be a morning person.
Right.
For it. Like, I don't want to train people.
5 a.m. and all
I don't want to do it. No, and I'm not an extrovert, so I guess I can't do it. Those two things.
Yeah, we're pretty much the same. Yeah. It's I found, I've tried.
Yeah.
I've tried to do the whole wake up real early, and that sort of thing, and it's just I cannot do it. I'm not a nice person that early. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
I need like 2 hours.
But yeah. and I've learned to be okay with that. I think there comes a point when you realize what you're good at, realize what you're not, and have to be okay with both.
Yeah.
Right. And finding what works best for you, as far as sort of that creative time or whatever it is. For me, it was after work. And I think, and like I said, I think before, when I'm done work is kind of when I feel the most, I guess, you know, I'm not going to say I feel most run down, because when you're run down, you really don't want to do anything.
Right.
You got a lot of
but I guess,
steam built up.
Yeah, it's like you just got to get it out.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was definitely, that was my time, is be able to kind of do it at that time. And I find I'm not creative at home. That's another.
Yeah.
I can't do that. My wife, she's the opposite.
There's a lot going on at home.
Yeah, my wife's the opposite. She needs like a quiet room in the house to do her work. Where I'm like, no, like I need to be out of the house. Do you like
the hustle and bustle?
It's weird. Because I don't like crowds. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, I'm one of those typical, I'm going to get my Christmas shopping done like in November. But the 23rd rolls around and I'm like, nah, I gotta get my Christmas shopping done. And I hate crowds, right? So I'm like, I don't care how much something is, go out, like, it's just so I don't have to deal with people. But for me, it's just, I think it's because I've thought about this a lot, because people ask me that all the time, right? Oh, you must love hanging around lots of people and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, no, I really don't.
You do that all day long.
It's well, yeah, exactly. It's more, I think, being in a place that's not mine. Where I can just, because anytime I'm, you know, sitting in a coffee shop or something like that, I've got my earphones in and I'm listening to music, and I'm focused on what I'm doing, but I don't have to worry about cleaning up. You know, if somebody makes a mess, it's not my kid. I don't have to clean it up. You know, so I think there's that sort of, my brain kind of can disassociate between the two, where I'm at home. If I'm at home and I look over and I see there's a small little stain on the table, I gotta clean it, you know? Yeah. And so my mind goes to that, right? I'm not very multitask oriented. Sure. I find I don't do that very well. Mm-hmm. I'm that type of person that will, you know, realize I need to do something and go do it, and then find that, you know, if I'm going to the fridge for something and I open the fridge and the fridge is squeaky, that I have to go, oh shoot, gotta fix that. So I gotta go get in the garage and get the WD-40, and then while I'm in the garage, I go, oh, this is a mess. No. And by the end of it, I'm just sitting on the floor, you know, like, kind of going, what am I doing? You know, how did I get here? What's happening? And you know, so I'm very much like a one track, you know. Yeah. And so I find that if I'm able to be in a space that I don't have to worry about anything else but what I'm doing. Yeah,
give yourself that one track.
Yeah, that I can just plug in and do what I need to. And the music's always on. That's the one thing with me. Yeah.
What, like, is there lyrics in your music?
If I know them. Mm-hmm.
Really?
If I don't know them, because I've been a musician since I was a baby. If I know whatever I'm listening to, if I've heard it, you know, and I've memorized whatever I need to, I can just leave it alone.
It's just the other way around. If I know it, I'm like singing and grooving. And
I probably do that too, but that's probably a subconscious thing. But if it's something I haven't heard, I have to try and pick out all the little nuances of the song, and you know, what instrument's doing what, and what vocals are doing this and that. I used to actually, like when I was a kid, I used to sleep with music.
Interesting.
And it was one of those things where, same thing, if I had a new, I'm going to say tape because I'm old. If I had a new tape that I was listening to, or CD, what are those? Here's a lesson, kids. Google, what is a tape?
I don't think children listen to the podcast, so I think you're good. You're in good company.
All right. And,
I don't know.
And again, same thing, if it was a new one, right? I couldn't sleep. I'd be up listening to the whole thing front to back, whereas it had to be something that I've heard before, so that I could actually sleep. My mind could, again, maybe it's that whole that my mind is disassociates from, you know, that it's, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's weird. I haven't done too much scientific research on my own brain, so I'd be afraid to. I'd be afraid to
know what works for you. That's funny. I had a friend who she told me her dad would play the Cher album for her when she was younger to help her fall asleep, and now like she'll go back and listen to it just for comfort.
Oh,
so she'll be like in her room just
as long as it's not like dramatic. Sometimes that song comes on in a department store, she has to run out the door.
It's better. I don't know. do you have a question?
Yeah, with the music, do you ever play the same track or the same song, or I mean the same album or the same song on repeat when you're trying to get into your creative zone?
Good question. I probably have.
Yeah.
Not that I've.
You kind of zone out when you do it, don't you?
Yeah, I do. The same song probably come on over and over and over again, and I wouldn't really realize it, but maybe.
Yeah. Do you have like a playlist? Maybe. Like this was like your writing playlist? Or like,
I don't know. It's kind of a mood thing.
Yeah.
Usually, really depends on how the day's going, how the week's going. Could be something mellow. It could be something a little edgier.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Cool. I like that. You just kind of flow with what's present.
Yep.
That's important.
Yep.
My question to you is like, I'm listening to your whole story and what is next, and there's a very clear drive in you, regardless of whether or not you believed that at the time or believe it now. But like, can you identify what kept you going? What kept you? Because it sounds like it got pretty intense at times, right? Like, one is not just suicidal for fun. Like, that's a crazy experience.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah. Like, what kept you going? What's your drive?
For me, it's always been my kids.
Yeah.
The when you become a dad, things change huge. Life doesn't become about you anymore. Very focused on them. And so they are everything in my world. Everything I do has them somewhere, involved in it, that sort of thing. So that's, for me, that's an easy question to answer.
Yeah. Sweet.
Yeah. There's because I mean, I'm sure there's probably lots of people out there that, money's a driver or, success is a driver, all this kind of stuff. For me, as long as my kids are happy, and healthy and that sort of thing, that's good for me.
Cool.
So that does it. Yeah, it gets me up in the morning.
Do you hope they'll read your book or?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I hope they would go and pre-order it.
The 6-year-old will give that.
They might be too young for Amazon right now.
Yeah.
So,
They have credit cards.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about the different things that kind of contribute to, the theme around the Flowcast is all about your flow state, the things that bring you that deep embodiment in the present moment. And it sounds like a lot of the triggers for flow are in there. What are those things that in your day or in your week where you completely lose track of time and you're just fully immersed?
Oh goodness. Man, I think, see, that's kind of a tough one for me. Because I'm very structured. Uh-huh. My day is by my calendar, right? My day is by my time. My clients are at a specific time, kids have to be places at a certain time. So it's, I don't know. That's a hard one to answer because there are very many times in my day or during my week or things like that where I'm able to lose track of time.
Sure.
Right. Just because of that structure of things. When I'm, it's happened a few times when I'm in the gym.
Yep.
When I'm working out or whatever, and I kind of look at the clock and I go, oh no, I have a client coming in very soon, that sort of thing. And, so I think, there are times when that happens.
Yeah.
Purposefully, not very often. And again, I think that's just because of the way my mind's been sort of trained over the years and conditioned to be very structured and time oriented.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I am sitting and writing, I do want to make sure that I do give myself, enough time to be able to do that. Because there, like I was saying, like there are times when, you do lose track of time when you've got so much. But it, like I said, it has to be within certain parameters. So a lot of times I have to have to set an alarm, or I have to, there's this little app that I use. I talk about it in the book, but there's a little timer app that I'll use because apparently some science has shown that we can only focus on a certain given task for such a, I think it's 25 minutes or something like that. And because everybody's focus is different, but so what this timer does is it gives you I think it's like 20-25 minutes or something like that of focus, and the alarm will go off, and that's 5 minutes to think of something else, pick up your phone, go refill your coffee, whatever, and then starts again, and that sort of thing, and that really helped me focus on writing, especially. To be able to know that, okay, I've got this amount of time. Then I think the third break gives you a little bit longer of a break for your mind to kind of reset a little bit. So, but again, it's that structured, right? For sure. It's that structured time that is, I would love to be able to have sort of infinite, time to just, get lost in something, but unfortunately it I think, and maybe it's an age thing, maybe it's a that time of life or whatever,
or maybe like structure is how you flow,
that's
like
just how I do it.
That's okay. It's okay to be, if it's type A or whatever you want to call it, like that works for some people. I'm the same way. Like, you can see my schedule, it's highlighted and color coded, arrows here, and that makes me feel at peace because I'm like, okay, I know what my day is like, and then I can actually focus on this hour that I'm teaching or this hour of podcast, or because I know. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
No, that's great. I mean,
is that right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, it's all good. Like even I guess kind of continuing on with that, with the writing process, are there points where it feels effortless, or does it come out of you naturally, or is there a lot of just pounding the keys to get those words out?
It's definitely both.
Of course.
Definitely both. Yeah.
Of course.
No, there are some times where it's like, something feels like it just comes out naturally.
Yeah.
I find those the scariest times though. I find that when it's just coming right out and you could just go that I really have to reread after that. Yeah. And whether or not that's again, just my mind going, that was too easy. There's probably something in there that isn't right, or something in there that somebody can pull apart or something, which I'm sure there is with anything that anybody reads. But it almost feels like, that time when it feels effortless. And then maybe that's just my own insecurities. I don't know. Where when it feels effortless is almost the time where I go, it was almost too easy.
I think you should own it. That's a blessing.
Yeah, maybe.
Really.
It's definitely part of the writing process. That's that's the ideal first stage, because you always go back to do the revisions and clean things up, but you got to get it down on paper first.
Exactly.
That's very cool. Is there anything else that?
Oh, let's see. I'm sure I could pull something.
Well, where can just to be respectful of your time too, where can people find the book?
Where do they get it?
The book is on Amazon. It's and that's it right now. It's available for pre-order on Amazon. So if you just search "What Is Next" in books, it usually pops up with my name, and and it's on there. And so it's available for pre-order now, and then that's the Kindle version. Yeah. Okay. Which anybody can pre-order. It's only $2.99. So,
absolutely.
It's not going to break your bank.
No. And if you want to support my caffeine addiction, $2.99 is a great way to do it. No. But the paperback will be available on the 16th as well. Cool. So that's kind of the.
Can you pre-order that as well, or is it just?
No, it's just the Kindle right now. Yeah, the paperback, when it comes out, it's a pay by print sort of thing. So the Amazon publishing. So you just go on there and order it, and
Cool.
Yeah, and I do have a website as well. whatisnextbook.com
Awesome.
is there, and then I have a blog, joshmartinwords.com as well, and they all kind of link together and everything. So
yeah, and you can also find you on Instagram posting about your coffee.
yes, yeah, Josh Martin RMT on Instagram. Yep.
Yeah.
Lots of coffee and kids.
Coffee and kids.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, and yeah, that's the best way to find me. And yeah, and I'm very happy to be working at Hybrid Rehab right now. Yeah, Hybrid Health and Rehab inside Hybrid Fitness, which are two amazing places to be as well.
Yeah,
so,
cool spots.
Yeah,
for sure.
What is next for you?
What is next for me?
You answer that however you want.
That's a great question. Yeah,
I heard it
I gotta think about that. Yeah. No, I mean, I think for me, it's wanting to see where the book goes.
Cool.
You know, I've got thoughts on potentially doing some public speaking. You know, doing but looking at, you know, got to see where the book goes first.
Yeah.
And then take the next step, right?
Wave.
So, yeah, who knows? There might be another book in me. Might be another book in the works. Who knows? But
people don't usually stop at one.
No.
My experience.
No. There's some thoughts brewing. So.
Right on.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. So we'll see.
Cool.
That's great. Well, thanks, Josh. It was
you.
lovely speaking with
sharing.
you. And
Thank you.
yeah, so check out the What Is Next book, and please go ahead and pre-order it.
Yeah.